At 72, I had seen the world shift beneath my feet more times than I cared to count. My name is Evelyn Hartwell, and my life, once a tapestry of ambition and triumph, had been reduced to the rhythm of a mop against polished marble floors. The irony was as sharp as the ache in my knees. I, a woman whose wealth could eclipse empires, was scrubbing dishes in my son's ostentatious mansion, at the beck and call of his young wife, Cassandra. It began 6 months ago, when my only child, Michael, invited me to live with them. After my husband passed, the sprawling estate we'd built together felt like a mausoleum. Michael's offer was a lifeline, or so I thought. "Mom, come stay with us," he'd said, his voice warm over the phone. "Cassandra and I have plenty of room. It'll be good for us to be close again." I packed a single suitcase, leaving behind the keys to my own empire, a conglomerate I'd quietly amassed over decades, hidden behind shell companies and proxies. My fortune was a secret I guarded fiercely, even from Michael. To the world, I was just a retired widow with a modest pension. The mansion in Greenwich was a monument to excess marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and a staff that scurried like mice under Cassandra's sharp gaze. She was 32, with the kind of beauty that demanded attention: sleek blonde hair, eyes like cut emeralds, and a smile that never quite reached them. From the moment I arrived, her warmth felt rehearsed. "Evelyn, we're so glad you're here," she said, her voice dripping with honey. But within days, the truth emerged. Cassandra saw me not as family, but as a resourcean, unpaid servant to manage her household. "Evelyn, could you tidy the kitchen?" she'd ask, her tone casual but edged with expectation. Soon, it was laundry, dusting, even polishing her collection of silverware. Michael, caught in the haze of his new marriage, barely noticed. He was a good boy, my Michael, but love had blinded him to his wife's manipulations. I swallowed my pride, telling myself it was temporary. I loved my son, and for his sake, I'd endure. But endurance has its limits. One evening, as I scrubbed pots in the cavernous kitchen, Cassandra breezed in, her heels clicking like a metronome. "Evelyn, the guest bathroom needs cleaning before tomorrow's dinner party," she said, not looking up from her phone. "And make sure the linens are ironed. You know how particular I am." Her words landed like a slap, but I kept my face neutral, nodding as I plunged my hands back into soapy water. Inside, something stirred a flicker of the woman I used to be, the one who built a fortune from nothing. That night, alone in my small guest room, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I hadn't always been this shadow of myself. Decades ago, I'd started with a single diner, flipping burgers while Michael slept in a crib in the back. Through grit and cunning, I turned that diner into a chain, then diversified into real estate, tech, and investments no one could trace back to me. My wealth was a silent giant, managed by a trusted few, while I lived simply, letting the world underestimate me. But Cassandra's disdain was a spark, and it was igniting something dangerous. The next morning, I woke with a plan not to reveal my secret. Not yet, but to test the waters. At breakfast, I mentioned a fictional old friend, a wealthy investor looking to fund local charities. Cassandra's eyes lit up, her fork pausing midair. "Oh, Evelyn, you know someone like that?" she asked, her voice suddenly syrupy. "Maybe you could introduce us." I smiled, murmuring something vague, and watched her greed take root. She didn't know she was stepping into a trap I'd spent a lifetime perfecting. Over the next week, Cassandra's demands grew bolder. She handed me a list of chores longer than my arm, her tone no longer cloaked in politeness. "Evelyn, you're so good at keeping things in order," she said, her smile a thin veneer. "It's such a help." I nodded, my hands busy folding her silk scarves. But my mind was elsewhere. I began to drop hints about my friend, weaving a story of wealth and influence that made Cassandra's eyes gleam. Michael, distracted by work, noticed nothing, but I saw the shift in Cassandra's demeanor. She was circling, sensing opportunity. One afternoon, as I polished the dining room table, Cassandra cornered me. "Evelyn, this investor friend of yours," she said, leaning closer, her perfume sharp. "What's their name? I'd love to meet them. We're hosting a gala next month, and someone like that could really elevate things." Her ambition was palpable, and I felt a thrill I hadn't known in years. "I'll see what I can do," I replied, my voice soft but my heart pounding with purpose. The game was on, and Cassandra had no idea who she was playing against. By the end of the month, I'd planted enough seeds to keep her hooked. I spoke of my friend attending the gala, dropping details about private jets and offshore accounts. Cassandra's excitement was a living thing, twisting her into someone almost pitiable. Almost. As I scrubbed floors and ironed linens, I was no longer just Evelyn, the invisible mother-in-law. I was Evelyn Hartwell, the architect of empires, and I was ready to reclaim my story one carefully laid brick at a time. The gala was a glittering spectacle, a parade of wealth and ego under the chandelier's glow. Cassandra had spared no expense, transforming the mansion into a stage for her ambitions. I moved through the crowd in a plain black dress, carrying trays of champagne flutes, my role as help cemented in her eyes. Guests in tailored suits and sequin gowns barely glanced at me, their laughter ringing over the clink of glasses. But I was watching, always watching, as Cassandra worked the room, her smile a weapon. She was in her element, charming a senator here, a tech mogul there, her laughter bright but calculated. I'd fed her just enough about my investor friend to keep her on edge. And tonight, she was hunting. "Evelyn," she'd whispered earlier, her eyes gleaming. "Make sure everything's perfect tonight. My future depends on it." I'd nodded, suppressing a smile. Her future? Indeed. As I refilled glasses, I overheard her talking to a group of investors, dropping my bait with practiced ease. "I've heard there's someone extraordinary coming tonight," she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. "A woman with wealth to rival Bezos, but so discreet. My mother-in-law knows her." Heads turned, murmurs rippling through the crowd. I kept my face blank, but inside, I was alight. The trap was tightening. Halfway through the evening, I slipped away to the kitchen, where the staff buzzed with frenetic energy. A young maid, Maria, caught my eye, her hands trembling as she arranged canapes. "Mrs. Hartwell," she whispered, "why do you let her treat you like this?" Her kindness stung, a reminder of the indignity I'd allowed. "Patience, Maria," I said softly. "Some things take time to set right." She nodded, unconvinced, but I saw respect in her eyes. It bolstered me. Back in the ballroom, Cassandra's desperation was growing. She cornered me near the dessert table, her face flushed with wine and ambition. "Evelyn, where's your friend?" she hissed, her grip tight on my arm. "You said she'd be here." I feigned confusion, murmuring about a last-minute cancellation, and watched her composure crack. "You don't understand," she snapped. "This could change everything for me, for us." Her use of us was a lie, and we both knew it. That night, as I lay in my narrow bed, I thought of Michael. He'd been at the gala, charming but distant, his eyes rarely meeting mine. I missed the boy who'd once clung to my hand, who'd believed I could do anything. Cassandra's influence was a wall between us, but I wasn't ready to tear it down, not yet. My plan needed time, and I needed Michael to see the truth for himself. The next morning, Cassandra was relentless. She handed me a new list of tasks: clean the chandeliers, organize her closet, scrub the patio. "Evelyn, you're so reliable," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. But I saw the strain in her eyes, the pressure of her own ambitions. I took the list, my fingers brushing the paper, and felt a surge of resolve. I'd play her game a little longer. But the rules were about to change. Over the next few days, I leaned harder into my fiction. I mentioned my friend had taken an interest in Cassandra's gala, hinting at a potential investment in her pet project, a luxury wellness brand she'd been pitching to anyone who'd listen. Cassandra's greed was a wildfire now, burning away her caution. She began to treat me with a veneer of respect, her demands couched in sugary words. "Evelyn, you're such a dear," she'd say, her smile tight. "Tell me more about this investor." I fed her just enough vague promises of meetings, whispers of wealth beyond her imagination. She didn't suspect the truth, didn't see the woman she'd reduced to a maid was the very empire she craved. But Michael was starting to notice. One evening, as I folded laundry in the utility room, he appeared, his face shadowed with guilt. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. "Cassandra's been demanding." I smiled, patting his hand. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just helping out." But his frown told me he wasn't convinced. The gala had planted a seed in him, too. He began watching Cassandra more closely, catching the edge in her voice when she spoke to me. I didn't push, I couldn't. Michael needed to come to his own reckoning. Meanwhile, I tightened the screws on Cassandra, dropping hints that my friend was skeptical of her character. "She values integrity," I said one day, polishing a mirror as Cassandra hovered nearby. "She's particular about who she trusts." Cassandra's face paled, and I knew I'd struck a nerve. By the end of the week, the mansion felt like a pressure cooker. Cassandra's ambition was fraying her nerves, and Michael's unease was growing. I moved through their world like a ghost, cleaning, serving, watching, always watching. Each chore was a step closer to my endgame, each slight a reminder of why I'd built my fortune in secret. The world had underestimated me before, and I'd turned that into power. Cassandra was about to learn the same lesson. The days blurred into a rhythm of labor and calculation. Cassandra's demands grew more absurd, reorganizing her shoe collection by color, hand-washing her delicates, even scrubbing the grout in the guest bathrooms with a toothbrush. I complied, my hands steady but my mind a storm. Each task was a brick in the wall I was building, a structure Cassandra couldn't yet see but would soon crash against. Michael's unease was palpable now. He lingered in doorways, watching as I carried stacks of linens or polished silver. "Mom, you don't have to do this," he said one morning, his voice tight. I was on my knees, scrubbing the kitchen floor, and the sight seemed to wound him. "We can hire more staff." I smiled, brushing a strand of silver hair from my face. "It's no trouble, Michael. I like to keep busy." But his eyes darkened, and I knew he was starting to see the cracks in his perfect life. Cassandra, meanwhile, was unraveling. My hints about the elusive investor had her on edge, her confidence replaced by a jittery hunger. She'd taken to following me around, peppering me with questions. "Evelyn, has your friend said anything about my brand?" she asked one afternoon, her voice sharp as I dusted the library shelves. "She's intrigued," I replied, keeping my tone vague. "But she's cautious. She's been burned before." Cassandra's jaw tightened, and I saw the fear behind her ambition, a fear of being exposed as less than she pretended to be. I began to shift the dynamic subtly. I'd leave financial magazines on the coffee table, open to articles about anonymous billionaires. I'd mention my friend's philanthropy in passing, watching Cassandra's eyes light up. She was so predictable, so eager to climb the ladder I dangled before her. But I wasn't just playing with her greed. I was testing Michael, too. I needed him to see who she truly was, not the polished facade he'd married. One evening, as I ironed Michael's shirts, he stormed into the laundry room, his face flushed. "Mom, this has to stop," he said, his voice breaking. "Cassandra's treating you like a servant. I didn't ask you here for this." I set the iron down, meeting his gaze. "I'm here because I love you," I said softly. "But you need to open your eyes. Michael, look at what's happening." He ran a hand through his hair, torn between loyalty to his wife and the truth staring him in the face. The next day, Cassandra crossed a line. She handed me a list of tasks that included cleaning her car's interior by hand. "Evelyn, you're so thorough," she said, her smile venomous. "I know you'll make it spotless." I took the list, my face calm. But inside, I was done playing her game. It was time to escalate. That night, I made a call to my longtime advisor, Richard, who managed my empire from the shadows. "It's time," I told him. "Set up the meeting." Richard arranged for a representative of my fictional investor to contact Cassandra, polished woman named Claire, who was actually one of my executives. Claire reached out, requesting a private meeting to discuss Cassandra's wellness brand. Cassandra was ecstatic, practically vibrating with excitement as she prepared. "Evelyn, this is it," she gushed, oblivious to my role. "Your friend's representative is serious. I could be set for life." I nodded, hiding my amusement. She had no idea she was walking into my web. The meeting was set for a sleek office in Manhattan, a neutral ground where Claire would play her part perfectly. I stayed behind, scrubbing floors as Cassandra primped and preened. But my mind was in that boardroom. Claire would dangle the promise of millions, but with conditions: due diligence, background checks, a deep dive into Cassandra's character. I knew she'd squirm under scrutiny, her carefully curated image cracking under pressure. When Cassandra returned, her face was a mix of triumph and anxiety. "They're interested," she said, pacing the living room. "But they're so thorough. They want references, financials, everything." She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. "Evelyn, you're sure your friend is legitimate?" I nodded, feigning innocence. "Oh, she's very particular," I said. "She only works with people she trusts completely." Cassandra's smile faltered, and I felt a surge of satisfaction. Michael, meanwhile, was pulling away from her. He began spending more time with me, helping with small tasks, his guilt a heavy weight. One night, as we washed dishes together, he spoke softly. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't see how bad it was." I squeezed his hand, my heart aching. "You're seeing it now?" I said. "That's what matters." But I knew he wasn't ready. "I noticed your message was cut off. You likely intended to request all 6 parts of the 6,000-word story, each 1,000 words, based on the provided prompt. Since you've already received the first 3 parts, I'll continue with parts 4, 5, and 6, maintaining the same style, tone, and structure as the previous parts. Each part will be approximately 1,000 words, written in emotive American English, with a focus on drama and humanistic values. Under the title My Son's Wife Made Me Their Unpaid Maid, she had no idea I was richer than Jeff Bezos himself. The story will remain cohesive and sequential. The air in the mansion felt heavier each day, charged with unspoken truths and the weight of my deception. Cassandra's meeting with Claire had shaken her, though she tried to hide it behind a mask of confidence. She flitted about the house, planning her next move, while I moved silently, cleaning, watching, waiting. My plan was unfolding. But it was a delicate dance one wrong step, and the truth could unravel too soon. Michael was changing. The guilt I'd seen in his eyes was hardening into resolve. He began questioning Cassandra's orders, small acts of rebellion that thrilled me. One morning, as I swept the foyer, he intercepted a list of chores she'd handed me. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, crumpling the paper. "Mom, you're not her maid." His voice was sharp, and for the first time, I saw the man I'd raised fierce, protective. I touched his arm gently. "It's okay, Michael. I can handle it." But he shook his head, storming off to confront her. I followed quietly, lingering outside the living room door. Their argument was a storm. "Why is my mother cleaning your car?" Michael demanded, his voice low but fierce. Cassandra's laugh was brittle. She offered, "Darling, she likes to help." The lie was so blatant it stung. But Michael didn't back down. "It's not right, Cass. She's family, not staff." I heard her heels click as she approached him, her tone softening. "You're overreacting. Evelyn's happy to contribute. Aren't you, Evelyn?" She raised her voice. Knowing I was nearby, I stepped into view, my face calm. "I do what needs doing," I said evenly, meeting her gaze. Her smile faltered, and I knew she sensed the shift. That afternoon, Claire called Cassandra with more questions-pointed ones about her business ethics and past ventures. I'd coached Claire to dig deep, to press on Cassandra's weak spots. When Cassandra returned from the call, her face was pale, her hands trembling as she poured wine. "They're relentless," she muttered, not realizing I was in the room. "Folding napkins. They want every detail of my life." I nodded sympathetically. "My friend is thorough," I said. "She doesn't trust easily." Cassandra's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing, her mind clearly racing. I escalated the pressure. Over dinner, I casually mentioned my friend's interest in family dynamics, hinting that she valued loyalty and respect above all. Cassandra's fork froze midair, and Michael's gaze flicked between us. "Sounds like someone worth knowing," he said, his voice tinged with curiosity. I smiled faintly. "She's particular." Cassandra's laugh was forced. "Well, I hope I pass her test." Her confidence was a thin veneer now, and I could feel her unraveling. The next day, I met with Richard in secret, slipping away to a cafe in town. He was the only one who knew the full scope of my empire. A grizzled man with unwavering loyalty. "Claire's doing well," he said, sipping coffee. "Cassandra's sweating. She's trying to dig up dirt on your friend, but she's hitting walls." I nodded, stirring my tea. "Good. Let her squirm." "What about Michael?" Richard's eyes softened. "He's asking questions. Smart kid. He's starting to see her for what she is." My heart ached, pride mixed with pain. I wanted to protect Michael, but he needed to face this truth. Back at the mansion, Cassandra's behavior grew erratic. She snapped at the staff, micromanaged my every move, and hovered over Michael, sensing his distance. One evening, she caught me polishing a vase and grabbed my wrist. "Evelyn, you're sure this investor is real?" Her voice was sharp, desperate. I met her gaze, unflinching, as real as it gets. She released me, her face a mix of fear and fury. I knew then that she was close to breaking. Michael's rebellion grew bolder. He began taking over my chores, insisting I rest. "You're my mother, not a servant," he said one night, carrying a stack of plates I'd been washing. His eyes were fierce, and I saw the boy I'd raised fighting to reclaim his strength. I hugged him, whispering, "I'm proud of you." But I wasn't ready to reveal my secret. The timing had to be perfect. Claire's next move was a masterstroke. She requested a detailed proposal from Cassandra, including a personal statement on her values. Cassandra spent hours locked in her office, her confidence crumbling under the weight of scrutiny. I overheard her on the phone, pleading with a friend for advice. "They're digging too deep," she hissed. "It's like they know something." I smiled to myself, scrubbing the sink. They did know something because I told them. By the end of the week, Michael confronted Cassandra again. I was in the garden, pruning roses, when their voices carried through an open window. "You're using her," he shouted. "She's my mother, not your slave." Cassandra's response was a low murmur, but I caught the edge of panic. I kept pruning, my heart pounding. The moment was coming, and I was ready. That night, I sat with Michael in the study, the first quiet moment we'd had in weeks. He looked at me, his eyes heavy with guilt. "Mom, I failed you. I let this happen." I took his hand, my voice soft but firm. "You didn't fail me. Michael, you're waking up. That's enough for now." He nodded, tears in his eyes, and I knew the next step would change everything. The mansion was a pressure cooker, and I was turning up the heat. Cassandra's desperation was palpable. She barely slept, pacing the halls at night, her phone glued to her ear as she tried to salvage her image with Claire. I kept my routine, cleaning and serving, but each task was now a deliberate act in my performance. I was no longer the invisible widow. I was Evelyn Hartwell, orchestrating a reckoning. Michael was my anchor. He began shadowing me, insisting on helping with chores, his anger at Cassandra growing. One morning, as we polished silver together, he spoke quietly. "Mom, I talked to Cassandra last night. She says you want to help, but I don't buy it. What's going on?" His eyes searched mine, and I felt the weight of my secret. "Just be patient," I said, squeezing his hand. "Things will make sense soon." He frowned but didn't press, his trust in me a lifeline. Cassandra's meeting with Claire was a disaster. She returned home late, her face drawn, and locked herself in her office. I overheard her on a call, her voice shaking. "They're asking for character references. They're questioning my integrity." She slammed the phone down, and I caught her staring at me through the doorway, suspicion flickering in her eyes. I met her gaze, calm and unyielding, and she looked away. The trap was closing. I intensified the pressure. I told Cassandra that my friend was considering a visit to the mansion to meet her in person. "She wants to see how you run things," I said casually, wiping down the dining table. Cassandra's eyes widened, a mix of excitement and terror. "Here." "Why?" Her voice cracked, and I shrugged. She likes to know who she's dealing with. The lie was seamless, and Cassandra's panic was my reward. Michael's awakening was painful to watch. He began questioning everything Cassandra's spending, her late-night calls, her treatment of the staff. One afternoon, he found me scrubbing the patio and yanked the brush from my hand. "Enough, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm ending this." He marched inside, and I followed, my heart racing. The argument was explosive. "You treat her like a servant," Michael shouted. Cassandra's defense was weak, her voice shrill. "She's family, Michael. She wants to help." But he wasn't buying it anymore. That night, I called Claire with final instructions. "Push her to the edge," I said. "Make her think the deal is slipping away." Claire, ever loyal, agreed. The next day, Cassandra received an email from Claire, outlining concerns about her leadership style and demanding a meeting with the entire household staff. Cassandra stormed into the kitchen, where I was chopping vegetables, her face white. "Evelyn, what did you tell your friend?" she demanded. I blinked innocently. Nothing she didn't already know. Her eyes narrowed. But she had no proof, no leverage. The staff meeting was my turning point. Claire arrived, poised and commanding, and gathered everyone in the ballroom. Cassandra stood at the front, her smile forced, as Claire asked pointed questions about workplace dynamics. Maria, the young maid, spoke up, her voice trembling but clear. Mrs. Hartwell is treated poorly. She works harder than anyone, and it's not right. The room went silent, and Michael's face hardened. Cassandra laughed nervously, but the damage was done. After the meeting, Michael pulled me aside. Mom, is there something you're not telling me? His eyes were desperate, searching for truth. I took a deep breath, the moment teetering on the edge. Soon, I whispered. Trust me. He nodded, his jaw tight, and I knew he was ready for what was coming. Cassandra's desperation peaked. She cornered me in the hallway, her voice low and venomous. If this deal falls through because of you, Evelyn, you'll regret it. Her threat was empty, but it fueled me. I leaned in, my voice soft but steel. Be careful, Cassandra. You don't know who you're dealing with. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw real fear. That night, I finalized my plan with Richard. It's time, I said. Set up the reveal. He chuckled. A rare sound. You've played this perfectly, Evelyn. She won't know what hit her. I hung up, staring out my window at the moonlit estate. The woman I'd been fierce, unstoppable was rising, and Cassandra's world was about to crumble. The day of the reveal dawned crisp and clear, the mansion gleaming under the autumn sun. I moved through my chores with a calm I hadn't felt in months, each task a final note in my symphony. Cassandra was a wreck, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights, her confidence shattered by Claire's relentless pressure. Michael watched her like a hawk, his trust in her eroded, his loyalty shifting back to me. Claire arrived at noon, her presence commanding the room. She'd arranged a final evaluation meeting in the study, with only Cassandra, Michael, and me present. Cassandra sat stiffly, her hands clenched, while Michael stood by the window, his face unreadable. I sat quietly, a folded dish towel in my lap, the picture of humility. Claire began, her voice smooth but sharp. Ms. Hartwell, our investor has concerns about your integrity. We've uncovered discrepancies in your business dealings. Cassandra's face paled, her voice a whisper. That's impossible. Claire slid a folder across the table fabricated documents I provided, detailing Cassandra's inflated claims and questionable partnerships. These suggest a pattern of dishonesty, Claire said. Cassandra's eyes darted to me, suspicion flaring, but I remained serene. Michael stepped forward, his voice low. Cass, is this true? She stammered, her facade cracking. It's a misunderstanding. Evelyn, tell them. All eyes turned to me, and I stood, my heart steady. It's time you knew the truth, I said, my voice soft but commanding. There is no investor. There's only me. The room froze. Cassandra laughed, a brittle sound. You're a nobody. I smiled, stepping closer. I'm Evelyn Hartwell, owner of a conglomerate worth more than Jeff Bezos. Every deal, every dollar, it's mine. I nodded to Claire, who opened her laptop, displaying my empire's portfolio, billions in assets, hidden in plain sight. Cassandra's face crumpled, disbelief warring with horror. Michael stared, his jaw slack. Mom, he whispered. I turned to him, my eyes soft. I kept it secret to protect you, to live simply. But I couldn't let this go on. I faced Cassandra, my voice steel. You used me, humiliated me, thinking I was nothing. But you're the one who's nothing without lies. Cassandra's voice broke. You can't do this. Michael. She's lying. But Michael's eyes were on me, filled with awe and pain. It's true, isn't it? He asked. I nodded, and he turned to Cassandra, his voice cold. You treated my mother like a servant. We're done. She gasped, tears streaming. But I felt no pity. She'd built her own ruin. Claire escorted Cassandra out, her dreams in tatters. Michael and I stood alone in the study, the weight of truth settling between us. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice raw. I touched his face, my heart full. I wanted you to live your own life, not mine. But I couldn't let her destroy you. He pulled me into a hug, tears falling, and I held him, the boy I'd fought for. In the days that followed, Cassandra left, her reputation shattered. Michael insisted I move into the master suite, but I chose a modest apartment in the city. Craving simplicity, I revealed my empire to the world, donating billions to charities. My name a quiet force. Michael rebuilt his life, stronger, wiser, and we grew closer than ever. As I stood in my new home, looking out at the skyline, I felt whole. I'd been a maid, a mother, a mogul, but above all, I was Evelyn, a woman who'd turned pain into power, not for glory, but for love. And that was wealth no one could take.